Hello class, and for this week's video we're going to be doing what is called a rubbing. It's kind of like, you've probably done these before and probably not known the name. If you go to like museums and stuff, sometimes they have like where you put a piece of paper and you put on something that has texture and you like rub to get the message, or like you rub different things onto it. So it's fairly simple, but I find them to be a lot of fun, and you can do a lot of different stuff even though you're not technically like drawing it on there yourself. You can kind of pick where you want stuff to go. The most important thing is that I have a piece of paper that's pretty thin. I'm just going to use some regular computer paper. Too thick and you won't actually like be able to get a very good coverage of what you're trying to use. And then you just need to like look around your house. For the sake of this video, I'm not going to be going around my own home and doing all the different things. It would be very hard and it would be a very jumbled up video. So I just picked some things that are smaller that I can use for textures, but like anywhere you can go that can have a texture. Things that have textures are like bubble wrap, silverware, your walls. There's always a texture on walls. It's very nice. And then, you know, just like different woodwork around the house. I grabbed a doily. Belts have textures. Magnets that you get from going on vacation and stuff like that have textures. So you can really use anything for this. Certainly don't feel limited by the stuff that I use. I just grabbed these because, like I said, they're smaller. And it really kind of gives you a little different perspective of the world, in my opinion. Because you're not, like, you might look at something, you're like, yes, but to see that texture, that 3D part of it visually, like when you use a rubbing, it gives you a whole different feeling of the space, if that makes sense. But anyway, so we can start in. You can do what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go randomly and kind of bring it all together at the end. Otherwise, you can make like an actual image. I've done this before where like I've drawn out the image I wanted and then I've used textures from different things to actually make the image. That works really nicely as well. But maybe I'll do just a small thing and then just do randomly around it for the background, actually. That way you can kind of see a little bit of both. And I think I'll just do like a quick fish. And this doesn't have to be perfect. Like I said, we're going to fill this in with some textures, so and I'm just gonna kind of do like an outline. Maybe I'll come through and like fill it a little bit with some different sections. So like these could all be different colors or different textures, type of a thing. That's kind of what I use, is I'll like break it up into like chunked sections, and maybe if I don't switch the texture, I might switch the color to really make it pop. And I think for here too. And maybe some like really big scale sections. Or just kind of a little bit breaking it up. And so you can use crayons to make a rubbing. That works really well. For the sake of today's video, I'm going to be using colored pencils, and these are just a basic pack. You can use basically anything. You can also just use regular, like a drawing pencil or mechanical pencil, any kind of basically if you can make a mark. Ink doesn't work the best, so I'd stick away from pens. But basically, crayons and colored pencils are probably some of the easier ones to use. And So I have my doily here, and I'm gonna just set it underneath the fish. With this, you want to be a little bit careful, because if you use too much pressure, it ends up like breaking apart a little bit. Like you could end up hurting your paper and like ripping it and stuff. So just being gentle with it, but not too gentle that you don't get anything. So like you'll kind of get a feel for it, and if you practice it, what I recommend is going around and documenting all the different textures you kind of have in the house and making like a category, and then like writing down where you found everything, and then if you really like one, you can go back to it and then use it. So you just you can kind of get the feel for when you're gonna break through the paper. This one's a little more subtle. You have the raised parts here. Fabric's a little bit harder to get a good one for. I'll show you like the difference between that, and I have this like stained glass thing that has like raised parts. So there's like a big difference in how it transfers. So you can see there's a big difference there in how it transfers it. And let's say you notice you're starting to move, so maybe you want to slide it. You can kind of get your texture to continue to move across. And you can always layer. I think that's a lot of fun. I encourage you to try layering it. So maybe you like that red, but you also want like a pink. Maybe I'll slide it so the lines are coming in from a different direction. But so you can get a lot, you can really end up stacking these on. Let me start adding some more. I think I'm gonna stack onto the fabric one because I don't like how much it didn't really stand out. So I'll stack a little bit of pink on it. I think that helped it. I'll come back to this one, but I'll show you some of the other examples. Because I really like that one. That's one that I end up using a lot because I like the lines you can get from it. I have this like magnet that's flowers. This one you got to be a little more careful with. And don't worry about your paper getting crinkled. You're going to end up crinkling it a little bit, but that's fine. You end up kind of getting it like that. Some other ones that another one that I really like using are these, like, you can use like belt buckles and belts. They're really wonderful because there's just a little bit of a difference in raised difference. If it's too much of a difference, it's going to be really hard to get like the patterning on it. So like these were harder to get the patterning on because it's so deep on the flower. But like the belt buckle is raised just a little bit. So like you're really able to get a pattern pretty easily. Like that. And see, even just switching, you don't even have to switch colors, just switching textures can really show you how much it pops. And I'll switch colors again. So it's yellow. I'll show you guys like the belt buckle. You see you're kind of getting a bunch of different textures with this. Obviously, because we're doing like the textures and we're getting the different colors and stuff in here, it's not going to be a nice even color coverage like that's solid, but that's fine. That's kind of what we want, because obviously where there is more versus less pressure against the paper is where you're going to get more color. This is a nice orange. And then you just kind of continue. I'll actually not work on the fish for a little bit, but sometimes what I was gonna do is it's fun to just kind of like randomly put maybe I only want that much there. And then you can kind of do a little bit here. And just kind of like in sections. Oh, I snapped that. There we go. Just kind of like bringing it up and over and repeating and putting more colors and just kind of like messing around to get something that you like. And just kind of, I guess, making your own thing. And like I said, walls are fantastic for this. I'm gonna actually come back to this one because it's such a wonderful, it's such a wonderful pattern. And I encourage you to use different parts of where you're getting your texture from. So like you see me moving around a lot, so I don't keep continually getting the same spots. And for this, it's just kind of like when you feel it's complete, it's completed. So like you might have spots of like empty, but that's fine. It's kind of like figuring out and balancing out when you want it to be done type of a thing. It's like obviously you put, but I encourage you to push and add more and more and more, just so you can experiment and see what you really like. So like, see how that really pops with the different, with the green and the orange. And you can get a little bit of the curvature of the item itself. You so like. Or you can do like that, where you don't have like solid and you have it in sections. Where you want to draw out a shape. So like, so you can texturize it that way. The texture comes through. But yeah, I'll finish filling in this fish for you all. Show you kind of what you can achieve. And I'm just kind of picking different colors. Show you how which colors can really like pop, which ones maybe don't pop as much. And so you can kind of like bring it in into sections. And even if I see I didn't move the paper there, but it's still in the same location, you can kind of get that color change there, which is really cool too. It's just kind of, this project is all about experimenting with things that you find in your surroundings to make an image that you're satisfied with. And if you don't like it, perfect thing is, you can go and you can try it with something else. If you don't like a texture, that's fine. That's why I kind of recommend going and like making a map of different textures and stuff. That way you know what they look like before you try to put it onto your picture. But like, let's say you put one on there and you just don't like it. Well, you can always try to put a different texture over there with a different color. If you use like a colored pencil, if you're careful, you can try and erase some of it to help it look different, or to kind of like get rid of it, minimize the texture. Otherwise, I also would just encourage you to try and put other colors over top of it and other textures and kind of see what you can make, even if you don't necessarily like the first layer. Sometimes the first layer can really lead the other ones to look amazing. yeah, with this process, you're gonna want to use somewhat, you're gonna want to sharpen. Sometimes when you start to run low, if you want to go into like a really tight spot. So like, I don't really have a great sharpener on this, but like, you can just kind of stick in the sharpener and twist it. And just holding this nice and secure, or if you have a bigger one, just holding it secure and then twisting this. I find it a lot easier so that you don't end up breaking it. Because that's the worst when you get it sharpened and then you end up breaking the lead. And make it sharp, but you don't have to go for like super, super fine sharp, because that'll end up being very easy to break. Going towards where you have more like this is a good balance. You might have to sharpen it a couple more times, but you're less likely to break when you get that really sharp one, unless you absolutely need to get into a tiny little area. This is going to be your best solution for not breaking it very easily. And see, like the yellow is hard to see, but you can get very subtle changes with the yellow. I'm gonna actually switch out because the yellow has got to be very hard for you guys to see. The oranges, I think, are pretty easy to see, so I'm gonna stick with like the orange, maybe some of the green. And just a little bit more. And for this one, you can be really precise about staying in the lines, or, you know, this is just kind of a guide. And if you're going randomly around, obviously, you don't really have to follow inside your lines. But that's just an example of different textures you can make and just using it to fill in imagery that you do. Otherwise, you can go randomly off of that. I encourage you to try more than one of these. Each one that you do you can kind of learn a lot from each one that you make, and you can continue on. I had a lot of fun with these videos, and I hope you guys had as much fun as I did. Keep trying more videos, and have a nice rest of your week.